And if you want to find out what is salah, just something very basic. I actually, I've been practicing, and I did say this in one of my talks, I've been practicing this thing where when I pray Imam with my children, okay, between, for example, Maghrib and Isha, I'm highly encouraged for you to do this, then you take a 1 minute break or 2 minute break between the two. You face your children and you start talking to them about something, a story or something. Then I started talking about salah once, and I said, what's the purpose of salah? And I remember my daughter, she, bless her, she gave me something, she taught me a lesson, genuinely. And she told me, salah is a time when you disconnect from the world. It's really true. It is the time when you're supposed to unplug from the world. And you're supposed to think about something else. Take your consciousness towards somewhere else. And then when you finish, it's supposed to give you all that tool you need to survive until the next prayer. It's a bit like the charger, the phone charger. You charge, it charges, okay, it's full charge, then you take it off until the next time you need to charge it. That's why we have salah again, because the effect of the salah, from dhuhr to asr to salah, maghrib, isha, in case we get attractions from the world, then we go again to salah, remember God again. And then we charge up, and then again. And then when I sleep, I wake up, charge again. That's how it is. I got to when I charge, I disconnect from the world, from my problems. There is a great scholar, and I do hope that one day we dedicate some time to the teachings of the great Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, al-Shaheed Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, who was martyred in 1980. Some narrations say that by Saddam himself, and he asked him, how do you want me to kill you? And he said, kill me like Jaddi al-Hussein, like my grandfather Hussein. So it is authentic that when in 2003 they dug up his grave, it was a secret grave, they found that his neck is 3/4 cut. So they did actually kill him like his grandfather Hussein. Okay? So Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr was not just a philosopher, wasn't just a theologian, he was a marji', he was a thinker. Anyway, so this individual, the Sheikh, he wrote a whole book about his life with Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, because he always used to be with him. And he said when it comes to salah, he used to take so long, I think if I remember, I read it, he said around half an hour, just before salah. And this is Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, this is not me. Okay? Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, who had the whole ummah in his head, and had Saddam after him, so many issues and stuff like that. He took around half an hour just to clear his head before he goes to pray. We come straight, like a race, not even do iqama wala adhan wala iqama, straight into salah. Just so that I can tick the box. Okay? So the idea behind salah is that I need to go. When I pray, I go to a completely different level of consciousness. And before I start this work, I'm going to go a bit deep today, because this is not just a typical lecture on salah. I'm going to go a bit deep. Would you allow me to do this? Yes. When I go deep, you might get a bit confused, but inshallah you won't. And if you have questions Saturday, inshallah, I'll be more than happy to answer all your questions. So when we enter salah, we need to go into a different realm of consciousness, my dear brothers and sisters. And I've done a bit of research on this, and I hope that the doctors here do not correct me. So there are things, and I want to be practical here. When we talk about different levels of consciousness, what does that actually mean? So there are things called the brain waves. Have you heard of these brain waves? Different hertz of brain waves. Okay? So it is, they say there are different levels of consciousness, different levels of states that we are in. So at the moment, I hope that we are all on what is known as the beta state. The beta state is around 13 to 30 hertz. It depends on how active you are. When the brain, it's all about the brain activity. What's the state of the brain? Yes? So if the brain is active, so such as now, I am active, inshallah you guys are active, not asleep, okay? So they say that we are now in the state of beta. If they measure our brain waves, It is in the state of what? Beta. So this is when you're active thinking, when you're focusing, you're alert, and you're absolutely alert, and you're talking and interacting and things like that. Problem solving, cognitive stuff, when you're at work, you're going to communicate with people, solve problems, etc. When you're at school, at university, it's called the beta. The lower hertz is called alpha brainwave. So this is from 8 to 13 hertz. So the other one was what? Was from 13 to 30. This is now we're going down in hertz. When we go down in hertz, you're getting a bit drowsy. Now we're talking about alpha. Alpha is the relaxed state of consciousness. It is a state of calmness. It is a state of meditation. A lot of people, when they meditate, when they meditate? They reach the state of alpha, where they start losing touch with the whole world. Just they go into somewhere different. And I've tried this, and I invite you to try it as well. They measure their brains, and they find that the brain waves has gone down. Yeah, they've gone into this alpha state. So there is really good benefits to alpha. This is stress reduction, mental coordination, relaxation. If we go down even more, there is the theta level of consciousness. Theta is 4 to 8 hertz. It's much lower. And theta is this light sleep. When you go to sleep, just before you go into rapid eye movement, REM, you go into this light sleep, but you're still awake. It's very different. I don't know, I've felt it. I felt awake, but at the same time, I feel like I'm going to sleep. It's that particular state just before you go into deep sleep. Are you guys with me? Still? Yes? So, meditation. So some people who meditate also go into that particular state, the theta state. But that's even deeper meditation. Remember, this is that consciousness state that you disconnect from the world. This is disconnection from the world and connecting to something that is not worldly. Yes? And they say this is really good for emotional processing, for creativity. And there is even deeper state, which is the delta state. And that is 0.5 to 4 hertz. And that is deep sleep. When you're actually in deep sleep, probably some of you snoring, you're in that delta level of consciousness. Yeah? Now, there were some individuals in the University of Malaya found that they measured the brain waves of people who pray, salah, okay? And they found that salah can significantly increase alpha wave activity. Do you remember the alpha wave? Do you remember the frequency of alpha waves? They were 8 to 13 hertz. Okay? It's that relaxing stage. It's that where you're awake, but in this calm, where your consciousness is in that level of calmness, where your brain is quiet, getting quieter and quieter. Not these thoughts that are just going crazy in your head, coming left, right, and center. This meeting, this person annoyed me, my wife said this, my husband said this, my child has said this, all these thoughts that are coming, it's going crazy. No, alpha state is when you're in calm state, when you get into that, to that different realm of consciousness. So they found that people who pray, of course, with concentration, they get into this state of alpha wave activity in the brain. And they said particularly when they go down in where? In sujood. And so beautiful because there is so many narrations and the Quran mentions so much about the sujood, the state of sujood. Yes? The Quran mentions in several areas the importance of the sujood. And then inshallah later on we will talk about sujood. So, what is this khushu' then? What are we talking about? Consciousness. Khushu' states, in my humble opinion, of course this is all my research, okay? So I'm happy for you to tell me otherwise. but this is according to my research. In my humble opinion, I believe that if we want to sustain khushu', we've got to do two things. One is we've got to be at the highest level of spiritual concentration and the highest level of mental concentration. And when it comes to spiritual concentration, I do genuinely believe that we've got to be in that alpha wavelength. If not, some of us, if we go deep into salah, we'll become into that theta. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Yeah. So we've got to be, in order for me to reach that spiritual concentration, yes? For me, I've got to do what? I've got to practice to be in that particular alpha brainwave. You know, Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullahi alayhi salam. You must have heard the story where in battlefields he used to go and pray, and they tried to protect him and there were arrows thrown at him, left, right and center, and he doesn't even twitch. He just continues and prays. If I pray and an arrow comes to me, I start to scream. But no, he just doesn't twitch. He continues with his prayers. At the end, they keep on taking the arrows out of his body. At the end, they say, "Oh, Amir al-Mu'mineen, did you not feel anything?" He says, "Do you not know where I was? I was somewhere completely different." He was in a completely different consciousness state, a completely different realm. It's not the state of beta. In my humble opinion, it's very difficult for me to pray in a beta state, because my beta state, my thoughts are everywhere. But in alpha, my thoughts will calm down a bit. It will relax me. It will give me some sort of connection. Remember, in alpha, I am not asleep. And some people may argue and say, well, actually, how can you pray when you're asleep? In fact, your wudu will be void. Alpha, you're not asleep. Theta, you're getting into a bit of sleep, but these people, I'm sure there are people out there who get into this, they disappear from the world. Okay? Now I'm talking about us. The alpha is not when you sleep. Alpha is when you're in that absolute no thoughts process, in this absolute relaxing, calming state. And then you move to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because guys, you know what? If we want to connect to God, we've got to try to remove the cloud. There's sometimes so much cloud up there in my brain. There's so much cloud, and it's raining on me every time, and these are my thoughts. I've just got to remove the cloud and see the sunshine. There's the sun behind the cloud. Yeah? I've got to remove the cloud and just see the sun. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I want to connect to God, I've just got to try to make sure that I get these thoughts out. This cloud, I need to take them out from my head. And then you say, how? Well, there's plenty of ways to say. And that is why Muhammad Baqir used to sit down to remove these clouds from his head, to try to get into that particular alpha state, in my humble opinion. Amir al-Mu'mineen was in there. Automatically, he's in there, alpha, theta state, in my opinion. As, of course, we are not Muhammad Baqir, we're certainly not Amir al-Mu'mineen. So we've got to have certain practical ways to try to calm ourselves down before we embark on that journey. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alihi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Inshallah, I haven't confused you. I told you I'm going to go a bit deep today. So inshallah, I haven't confused you. I mean, look, I decided I can give you, I've got 101 ways to concentrate in prayer. I've written a book on this, okay? Some of you might have, I came 2 years ago here in Masjid Ali. I gave a workshop. Unfortunately, not a lot of people attended, but that's okay. No offense taken. And I had my book there. So I've got a book called 101 Ways to Concentrate in Prayer. And I can give you 101 ways, but that's not what I'm going to do today. I wanted to dig deep into how can we truly concentrate in prayers. Okay? So this idea of consciousness, we understood. How can we achieve khushu', in my opinion, is to make sure that we reach that alpha stage, alpha consciousness state, and also make sure that we're spiritually concentrating as well as mentally concentrating. Now, how do we mentally concentrate? Now we've understood a bit about spiritual concentration, where we've got to make sure that we're going to try to be in that alpha state, where there's no thoughts and I have direct connection with God. And of course there are other things that we will talk about in a bit as well. But mental concentration, right? While I'm in this particular state, this alpha state, because just alpha state, a lot of people, they meditate and there is the alpha state, but they don't, there's not much connection, etc. So imagine this, in his book, Sayyid al-Khomeini, he talks about of Adab al-Salah, very good book, but it's quite deep, okay? He talks about this bird of imagination. Have you heard of this bird of imagination? He talks about, imagine that this khayal, imagination is this khayal, so these are your thoughts, which is like a bird that flies from one tree to another. So imagine, when you go out in your garden, if you have a garden, or you go to a park, you see trees, you see birds, they don't sit still. Do you see birds sit still? Only for a bit. They sing a bit or do tasbih of God, and then they go to another one. They just can't sit still. And this is what's happening inside us. 1, 2, 3, the bird of imagination in us keeps on moving from one tree to another. See what I mean? So what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that the bird sits still. Right? In fact, even better, I clear all the birds out and I just have a tree with no birds. And that is a state of alpha. It really is. When you're in that calm state. And it's a beautiful state to be in when you want to truly relax as well. When you say, okay, what are you talking about? This is very theory. How can you concentrate? How can you be in this alpha state and also at the same time concentrate? I can't be in that state of concentrating in something for a very long time. This bird of imagination, of al-khayal, keeps on moving around in my head. But I tell you that you have. I'm sure everyone here has watched at least one movie in their life. You must have concentrated at least 90% in that movie. How many you kids? All the youngsters. You've watched movies, you've watched cartoons. You must have concentrated at least 90-95% of that particular movie. So it is possible for us to concentrate. But it is about trying to make sure that we are in that particular moment, is giving that effort and preparation for concentration. Now, so what we've talked about is different levels of consciousness. I'm just going to go back so I don't lose you. We talked about different levels of consciousness. And we said that the alpha level of consciousness is where we can obtain khushu'. Yes? In my view, the alpha concentration is where we can, alpha brainwave is where we can sustain khushu'. And we've got to make sure that this particular thoughts in our heads, these birds that go from one place to another, it's calmed down. Okay? Now, how do we do this? How can I be in this alpha state? And how can I quieten my thoughts? Now this is the $1 million question, isn't it? Yeah, that's the million. This is all theory. But the $1 million question. Now, I'm going to tell you a bit of science, and then we'll get back to answering this question. What science recently has come up with? Before, I'll tell you before, they used to think that the brain is quite rigid. Brain is quite rigid. You can't really, when you have a particular pathway, a neurological pathway in your brain, that is fixed and it cannot be changed. Now there is this new science called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity says what? Neuroplasticity says, well, actually the brain isn't rigid. The brain is actually quite plastic. You can mold the brain how you like it. And wow, when I read about neuroplasticity a few years ago, I said, yes, this is the answer. Because it is from Allah's justice that He gives us the opportunity to mold our brain how we like it. It's not Allah's justice to give us a brain and says, this is how it is for you, you like it or not. Because science used to tell you, I'm sorry, there's no way you can change your brain. We have psychiatrist here who will testify. He's nodding, so that's good for me. So you have a brain that you can mold. This is beautiful, guys. So what Allah has created, He's created this engine inside you that He said is not fixed. If you want to, you can change it. And this is the science of neuroplasticity. Imagine, what they say is, imagine you're in a forest. This is how you start to change your brain. You're in a forest and you've got to go from A to B, from one end to another. You've got to go through a forest, lots of bushes and things like that, trees, etc. And you get to B. That was quite difficult, wasn't it? Next time you've got to go exactly the same path. That is easier for you because now you've learned the path a bit and you've created the pathway for you so you can trace your steps back. And then you do it a third time and you do a fourth time. Imagine you do this particular step 100 times, 200 times, where you go from A to B exactly the same path. What you've done in your brain, if this was a forest, is you've created a new neural pathway. They're called a neural signature. And that is then what established in your brain, but you have created that particular pathway. So what neuroplasticity is you can rewire your brain. This particular pathway, through continuous practice of that, you've done it, but you can then change it again by rewiring it again. And this is the beauty of neuroplasticity. This is the beauty of our brain. We can mold it the way we want. And so imagine, and I'm going to go slightly a bit deeper, and then I'm just going to go back a bit. I'm just going to touch on this. I don't have time to talk about what I'm about to talk about, but there's really good work about creating a vision for the future. And just for those who are a bit awake, they're in the beta consciousness state, just bear with me, okay? What they say now, through neuroplasticity, what you can do is create that pathway. Remember we talked about that pathway? Before the event actually really happens. So for example, I want to become less angry. Okay, I want to work hard. I will want to become less angry. So what you need to do is you need to be in that meditative state where you imagine in your mind, through elevated emotions, how would you feel when you're not angry? Through elevated emotions, you create that pathway of what might happen in the future. So if I ask you, how would you feel when you are in a calm state? How would you feel when you are in that particular alpha state? How would you gonna feel? You say, oh, yes, I feel, and you've got to practice this, and I've tried this. You've got to do meditation techniques to try to establish that path of being in that alpha state, of being that in a calm state. So I tell you, just try to imagine what it feels like for you to be calm. What it feels like for you to be feeling peaceful. You close your eyes for around 10 minutes, 15 minutes, of course with guided meditation, and you start to draw that path of feeling calm, of feeling peaceful. Slowly, your thoughts will start to dissipate and start to disappear. And you're starting to create that path now. And then you start to elevate that emotions. You start to feel really joyful and calm and peaceful. And when that happens, your brain starts to learn. It says, oh, this is actually happening. But it's not really happening. You're in that meditative state. You are teaching your brain how to be less angry, or you are teaching your brain how to be in that alpha state. I know I've lost probably 95% of you. I invite you, I don't have time, this is a big topic. I invite you to go, if you are interested, and of course it has to be done with caution, okay? And I'm not saying this, I'm going to name this person, but I'm not saying this person is 100% correct and he's in the right path, but we take what is good and we throw what is not good, okay? But it's good for us to develop. There's an individual here in America called Dr. Joe Dispenza. Some of you might have heard of him. He talks a lot about the vision of the future. He talks about having that vision of the future, if there is a particular illness you have or a particular thing that you want to be in a state in the future. then you try to practice, you try to teach your brain to be in that particular state right now, before the event has actually happened. And I wonder, and he talks about these different consciousness states. I wonder whether we can also practice, a bit like how Shaheed al-Sadr used to do half an hour before. Sit down before prayers. If we take Salah seriously, and have that time beforehand where we perform meditation to be in that alpha state, to create that vision of the future where I am in that calm, peaceful state. How many people have I lost?
Yeah.
I'm really sorry if you didn't get what I mean. Okay. And I invite you again to listen to it again, and I invite you to read more about this from Joe Dispenza. And inshallah, if I'm given an opportunity again here, I can come and give more details about this. But I just wanted to throw it in there for who caught it. Okay? This is again all theoretical. Okay? But I have tried these things. Probably no one has spoken about this. I'm trying to really be practical into how can we concentrate on prayer. I can give you all these methods, but it's not, I don't know if it's going to work or not. But we've got to be prepared for Salah. This is a journey towards God. So I've got to be prepared before I say Allahu Akbar. Not quickly I come. And how can I reach that alpha state? Is through meditation before Salah. Through trying to meditate, through trying to relax the mind, so that, and in addition, if you can, create that vision of the future, of being in that alpha state, of trying to calm yourself down. How does it feel? Ask yourself this question. How would it feel for you to feel peaceful? How would it feel for you to feel calm? How would it feel for you to feel in that tranquil? Even if you're not, just ask yourself this question. How would it feel? Close your eyes and ask yourself that question. I've done that, and trust me, I get something inside me that actually will create that vision of me actually being in that state. And once, the more and more you do, the more signatures is being recorded in your brain, because it's molding. Your brain is molding continuously, it's listening to you. Yes? I am teaching my brain what I want it to do, not the other way around. I have the power of teaching my brain. Allah has given me and you the power of molding our brain the way that we want it. Anyone talked about this in Majalis before? No?
No.
Okay.
First time.
So therefore, we get in there, okay? That's what I told you. I'm sorry, I get a bit deep. Today I thought I'd throw there and leave, in case someone throws anything at me. So, we said alpha state. How to achieve the alpha state is through neuroplasticity. We mold our brain to reach that particular state. And I invite you again to go and read more about this. Now, God, there's so much to talk about this. Okay, so once we're in this particular alpha state, imagine that you are in this particular alpha state. If your heart is still a bit not soft, it's a bit hard, okay? Then maybe you become calm, but you can't connect to God. Yeah, even if sometimes if you remove these particular thoughts, there isn't that connection with God. And so that is why we've got to continuously work on our hearts. My dear brothers and sisters, having focus and concentration in Salah, khushu' cannot be a switch on, a switch off button. I have to practice khushu' in my daily life so that I can sustain khushu' in my Salah. How is my akhlaq? How is my connection with the worldly desires? I can't just come and say Salah and say, oh, I'm not concentrating while I was just watching indecent things, or not lowering my gaze, for example. It just doesn't work out. Yes, Salah will help you to do that, but you've also got to give that effort. Yes? It's like a circle of things. Salah does help you to connect to God, does help, but you also need to prepare for Salah as well. You need to give that effort as well. So, it's a bit like, let me also give it to you as in we're in the example of a tree. It's a bit like this individual who is sitting, trying to contemplate, do reflection under a tree. Yes? But then all these sparrows who keep on whispering and moving around. So he takes a stick, he starts to shoot them, try to get rid of them. When he gets rid of them, they come back again. Okay? Then he does that again. He takes the stick and starts to shoot them. Get out of here. I'm trying to reflect. Give me some quiet time. You know, they go and then they come back again. Well, it's a bit like the fly. Have you seen, the fly back in India, Pakistan, Iraq? Yeah? The flies, they're everywhere. No. Especially if there is dirt, if there is like indecent things, if there is bad food, the flies come. When you shoot them, what happens? They come back again, don't they? Do you think they're gone? No, they come back again. When you shoot them, you tell them, get out. And they come back again. So they told this guy, they told him, you're wasting your time. The guy trying to remove the sparrows from the trees. The best thing to do is you need to cut the tree. Once you cut the tree, they will be gone. With the flies, the best thing to do is for you to remove the bad stuff, the food. Remove it. Once you remove it, they go. The flies will go. You cut the tree. This tree, my dear brothers and sisters, is the worldly desires. The branches are all the types of desires that we have. This particular desire, intimacy, I can't lower my gaze, this particular desire of this food, there's all these desires that I have. Cut the tree so that my heart becomes at rest. Now, of course, it is very theological. No one can cut the tree. The tree is always there. The branches are always there. It gives us desires and desires. Of course, when I'm talking about desires, some desires are, of course, essential for us and we practice them. I'm talking about the desires that are haram. And when you step away from what is halal. Now, how can we remove these particular desires? Now, there's a beautiful Hadith al-Qudsi. Do you guys know what Hadith al-Qudsi is? Hadith al-Qudsi is a narration from the Prophet ﷺ from Jibreel, from God, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's not written in the Quran. Yes, it's a Hadith Qudsi from God. This is a beautiful Hadith al-Qudsi. It is in Mahasin, volume 1, page 15. He says, Allah says, narrated that Allah says, I only accept the prayer of one who has humbled himself to my majesty. Become humble. How can I cut the tree or remove some of the branches? Come and break the branches. Okay, sometimes I can't break the tree. I can't remove that food from the flies. Well, I remove a few things. You become humble in front of Allah. At least, some people just stand like this in front of Salah. Become a bit humble, At least you can practice humility in front of God if you can't practice humility in front of people. Has refrained himself from carnal desires for my sake, who passes his day with my remembrance. Remember, we keep on talking about dhikr. Does not act over my creation, feeds the hungry, clothes the undressed, shows compassion to the afflicted, and shelters the stranger. The light of such a person will shine like the sun, and I shall grant him light in darkness and knowledge in ignorance. I will persevere him, I will preserve him with my honor and guard him with my angels. When he calls me, I will answer him. When he asks me, I will grant him. His example is like the gardens of paradise, where no fruit ever becomes dry and whose state never changes. So what does Allah want? He says, humbled himself to my majesty, refrained himself from carnal desires for my sake, who passes his day with my remembrance, feeds the hungry, clothes the undressed, shows compassion to the afflicted, and shelters the stranger. All these particular acts, remember, a lot of these things are what you do for others. And how many times in my majalis in the last few nights we've talked about getting together, helping the other. This is how you try to connect to God and sustain khushu' in your salah. That's what God says. I will only accept the prayer of one who does this. The one who truly works throughout the day to remove this worldly desires from their heart. It's all practical, guys, but I know you know all this, but it's not a switch on, switch off thing. It really isn't. I've got to work really hard during the day, and then when it comes to prayer, I practice some meditation before salah. I'll get into that alpha state, inshallah, in the future. It's all practicing. You won't get there from day one. Maybe it'll take you a few years to get there. All right, it'll take us a few years to get there. But it's all about trying. It's about trying. You know what I said yesterday? When you fall, you get up. When you make a mistake, you ask for repentance. Not when you fall, you say, oh, it's too late for me, I'm going to hellfire anyway. And then you fall again. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the first way, we said 3 ways to try to concentrate in prayer. The first way, in order for me to sustain khushu', is try to remove those desires. And the first way, it's a bit like when we talked about the interview, where I try to get to know my God. Yes? I know that I need to know the interviewer. By removing these desires and understanding myself, I get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, there's so many ways, guys. But I don't have the time for us to talk about how to get to know ma'rifatillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's so many things. And I invite you to go and get to know Allah by getting to know yourself. And we did talk about it a few nights ago about knowing your thoughts, etc., and the relationship between your soul and your thoughts and your intellect and all these things, but it needs to be done. I need to give time for gaining knowledge. Knowledge won't just come like this. It's not wahi, not revelation. I need to give some time to knowledge. So that's number one. Number one, for me, in order for me to sustain khushu' in my salah, is to know Allah in order, and for me to do that is to remove my desires. Okay, try to continuously, and I know it's hard, but as I said, I say it again, if you do fall into some desires, ask Allah for repentance and move on. Do not give up. Number 2, remember the interview, you got to prepare for it. Know the interview skills. Salah, you've got to prepare for salah. There's so many ways to prepare for salah. I already mentioned one, which is meditation, isn't it? And I was talking about the introduction here, where how can we reach that state of alpha state? I'll give you another one as a bonus, okay? It's concentration in wudu. How many of us concentrate in wudu, especially Salatul Fajr? When I wake up around 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m., I have one eye open, one eye closed, I go to the bathroom, and I start wudu, I do my wudu, I'm all over the place. The start of your concentration in prayer and your khushu' starts from where? From your wudu, not from your salah. Of course, jurisprudentially, is when you say Allahu Akbar. But the journey, spiritual journey, starts from your wudu. So, these are some etiquettes I'll give you, and you can try it out and go back to the books for some more. Try to be in the direction of the qibla when you do wudu, if possible. I mean, I know the tap is on the other side, etc., but try to be in the direction of the qibla. Begin with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And then try to understand that every single thing you do has a spiritual benefit. So when you gargle, you know when you gargle right before, it's mustahab, you gargle with water prior to wudu, say, as this will purify my mouth from any lies, backbiting, and other forbidden acts. This is purification of my mouth. When I gargle, it's a purification of my mouth. You guys with me? Hello? I'm here, don't turn that side. Okay? When I take water, I put it in my mouth, it is as if I am cleansing my mouth. I am purifying my mouth from any lies and any hate and any issues that I have done, backbiting and other forbidden acts. When you rinse your nose, it's also mustahab. When you rinse your nose with water, this removes any arrogance and pride within you. You know, when you stand up like this with arrogance, you rinse your nose, it is as if you are removing these arrogance. As you wash your face, remember the day of resurrection, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will illuminate some faces and will darken some faces. Right? So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to illuminate your face in Yawm al-Qiyamah. Remember, this is spiritual. So while you're doing the wudu, all this, not your mind is somewhere else. As you wash your right hand, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma ja'alni min what? From the people of the right. Yes, the right path. And when you wash your left hand, you say, oh Allah, do not make me from the people of the left. Yeah, I'm not talking about politics here, right and left. It's talking about Islam. Okay? And as you wipe your head, you say, oh Allah, purify my head, clean my head from all the thoughts. Okay, when you wipe on your head. And finally, as you wipe your feet, you make me, oh Allah, walk on that path, the sacred path of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Subhanallah. It is also recommended for you as you're doing your wudu to recite Surah Al-Qadr. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. It is also recommended that particular supplication by Amir al-Mu'mineen at every step of the wudu. It says, Allahumma ja'alni, for example, min al-tawwabin wa ja'alni min al-mutatahhirin. Print it out, put it in your bathroom. I've got it in my book for your children. So when they do wudu, they can recite this particular supplication. Finally, number 3, of course there are many, but I've chosen only 3. Now you're in the interview. Now you've started the salah. Okay, we're prepared. Now we're in the salah. There's many ways to try to focus while you're in salah. But I have chosen about sujood. Sujood, my dear brothers and sisters, the closest position you can get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through sujood. In any time, doesn't need to be salah. If you've got a worry, if you've got any issue, just quickly go down and sujood. You don't need turba. Just quickly go down and sujood. This is outside salah, of course. Yeah? Outside salah, if you're just walking, if you're in your home, and just go down and sujood and say subhanallah, shukran. This is the best position you can get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wasjud waqtarib. In the Quran it says, wasjud, do sujood, waqtarib, and get close. This is the best position. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now just try to also comprehend and understand the reason why we do this sujood. And there is the verse in the Quran, 20:55, it says, Minha khalaqnakum, wa fiha nu'idukum, wa minha nukhrijukum taratan ukhra. He says that we have created you from it, and we will return you to it, and then we will take you away from it. And if you try to understand this, there is a narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen that talks about this. In tafsir of this particular verse, it says this is the philosophy of our sujood. When you do the first sajda, oh Allah, you have created me from it. And this is one of the explanations of why we, the Ahl-e-Bait, the followers of Ahl-e-Bait, of course, we're following the sunnah of the Prophet, is that we prostrate on turba. Because when you prostrate on turba, you are saying, oh Allah, you have created me from turba. You have created me from this turab. You have created me from it. So the first sajda is when you were born. You have created me from it. Because we were all created from what? From turab. Yes? And then when you get up from the first sajda, oh Allah, you have created me. It says at the start, oh Allah, you have created me from dust. Then you took me out of it. You took me out of the dust. So now I am living my world. This is my first sujood. Then I go back to another sujood. Where is it? Oh Allah, you have taken me, you have brought me back to it. Which is the turba, which is where, what happens when I go back? What happens when I go back the second sujood? It is as if I have gone back to turba, and which happens what in my life? That's when I die. Yeah, I think I have to. It is when I die. Yes, I go back to turba when I die. I was brought from it, I live in my life, and then I go back to it, and I die. And then when I get up for the second time, it is Yawm al-Qiyamah, it is the hereafter. And that is why it says in this particular verse, it says, Minha khalaqnakum, from turba, wa fiha nu'idukum, wa minha nukhrijukum taratan ukhra. Yes? So understanding this particular sujood is vital. Also, there is this Egyptian doctor called Muhammad Karim Bibani. He says, Also from a medical term, sujood is important. He says sujood is a unique position, as it is the only position in which the brain becomes lower than the heart. You know, the heart becomes above the brain. Yeah? In the sujood, the heart becomes above the brain. And he talks about how the blood flows, the heart, the gravity when it sends to the brain, sends, you know, the gravity, the heart is above the brain, so it sends blood, rushes towards the brain in that particular sujood. So there's even medical benefits when you are in sujood. And I don't know if you've done yoga, right? There is a position like a sujood in yoga. So in our positions of salah, yeah, it's also good for you in the positions. It's not just about the salah, the spiritual salah. And then there's a beautiful narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi. And this is beautiful. He says, لَوْ يَعْلَمُ الْمُصَلِّي, if only the one who prays knows, مَا يَخْشَاهُ مِنْ جَلَالِ اللَّهِ, if he knows the magnificence of Allah that surrounds him during sujood, مَا سُرَّهُ أَن يَرْفَعْ رَأْسَهُ مِنَ السُّجُودِ, he will not get up from sujood. If we only know the magnificence of Allah's creation, that Allah in sujood, that surrounds us in sujood. When I am in sujood, Allah sends so much blessings towards us. If only I know that, then I don't want to get up from sujood. I just can't, because the blessings are too much. And this is Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullah. And finally I will say this, my dear brothers and sisters, that concentration in prayer, sustaining khushu' is work in progress. None of us has reached a stage of perfection. Probably we will never. But there's one thing we must always do, is keep on going. Learn and keep on going. Try different ways. Try to sustain that level of alpha state. Try to meditate before salah. Try to concentrate on your wudu. Try to understand and focus on the words that you're saying during salah. But always try different ways. But don't keep on praying and then say, I'm not trying new ways, but there isn't anything that I do. I'm not focusing on my prayers. Why is my salah bad? And then you see everything else is bad. And you're not praying on time. And I mean, let's try to make sure that at least we give an effort. That's what is expected from us. We are sinful people. So it's expected from us just to at least try. Give it a try. Change a bit. This is truly the message of Abu Abdullah. When at the time of salah, he left everything and he told an individual, جَعَلَكَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ. May Allah make you among those who are from the Muslimin, those who continuously pray. And he went and prayed. He left everything. He left the battle because the battlefield is not that important. The most important thing is Allah is calling. You know, if it was some of us who say, well, actually, it's still 1 hour I've got left for, you know, the mustahab. Let me continue fighting. No. It was the time of salah. Well, I'm watching that movie or that you know, baseball game or that American football game or that soccer game or whatever it is. Still until half time. No, it is salah time. It is salah time. Hussein Salamullahi alayhi was in a battlefield. He stopped. He said, I will pray. And the arrows were thrown at him like his father. He said, I pray. And this was the path of Ahl-e-Bait Salamullahi alayhi, where they continuously focused on salah. And salah gave them, my dear brothers and sisters, it gave them that tranquility in their heart. It gave them clarity of the mind. It really did. And on that particular night, when Al-Sabaya were heading towards Damascus, Dimashq, Imam Hussein Salamullahi alayhi had said this earlier. In the narration says, Sha'Allahu an yarani qatila. Allah, this is His will. Allah's wish is to see me martyred. وَأَنْ يَرَاهُنَّ سَبَايَا, and He will see that it was wished that He will see them, those individuals, sabaya, because they have taught generations and generations so many lessons. And just take imagine, go with that. If you want to close your eyes, that's fine. Go through that imagination in your mind of that caravan they are very, very tired, they are exhausted, where they've just left Kufa